Hi, I'm Rob Hadley at Vancouver Hypnotherapy. Now today I've got a little bit of a story about three of our clients. Now we're going to say hypothetical clients. The first one is a middle-aged 50-year-old Eastern European gentleman who comes into our office, comes into our clinic with a challenge with alcohol. Now he had gone out on something of a binge, he'd got quite drunk, came home, became violent with his wife and hit his wife. Police were involved, and obviously it's a nasty situation. He's coming into our clinic asking for a lot of help immediately, not really understanding what's going on at all. His English isn't that good, and he's a new immigrant to Canada. This is a very confusing situation, and he's very upset gentleman. Second client is a government employee, Canadian, been here since birth, and suffers from anxiety attacks. She's about 38 years old, and it's just generally making her life quite unpleasant. And the third client is a more extreme client, a cocaine addict of 20 years. And in this instance, she's decided she really wants to address her addiction. Now, after 20 years of cocaine use, there's multiple health issues. She works in a casino, and not very high income individual, and requires a little bit of assistance, which the company, fortunately, we are able to provide. So she's not ending up paying the full price for this. So those are three clients. I'm not saying they're absolutely typical, but it's certainly not unusual for us to deal with these three clients on any given day. Now, what one sees when one works with them is not what often walks right through the door. So as we get to know each of these clients better, you see there's a slightly different story as they progress. So our three clients. The first, the 50-year-old male Eastern European. He's got some problems with the police now, obviously, and he's under a great deal of stress. He's self-employed, doesn't make life easier. And this is a highly unusual behavior for him because he's never done anything like this before. He's never had any problems with his wife. He's never had any history of violence. So as we begin to study his situation in a bit more detail, we start to see some more detail and some more issues evolve. Number one, he's got a heart condition. He's recently started getting treatment for that. Number two, the stress is pretty heavy that he's been under. And as a result, he's started to experience panic attacks. Occasional, not that serious, and apparently not really connected with any of this, but it's in the picture. And the third thing about him is that he's very much, I mean, he's successful, he's done well, but he's not really familiar with the Canadian medical system. So it's all a bit, it's unfamiliar territory for him. Now, our second person, the government employee, who started experiencing panic attacks and starts to respond very negatively to any form of treatment. She's not doing very well on antidepressants. She's gone through a relationship breakup recently, and her workplace environment is absolutely appalling. She's got a poor relationship with her manager, and she really struggles with that. And she's got a group of friends around her. As the history starts to develop, we find that the group of friends around her is a relatively negative group. She went through university with them. They are also involved in the same type of work as her. And interestingly enough, there's quite a lot of partying. And as the relationship develops, we see there's a lot of binge drinking with at least 2 or 3 times a month cocaine use. Now in Vancouver, there's a bit of a cocaine problem. There's a much bigger pot problem, but there's quite a big cocaine problem. So in fact, a lot of what's going on for her, especially around anxiety, we trace to being involved with cocaine. So that starts to get a little bit more obvious. So we begin to recognize exactly where the issue is. Now with our third person, recognizing the issue is very easy. She's been using cocaine for 20 years. The thing is, she now wants to change everything. She has back problems, which are associated in fact with her liver and her kidneys because she's used so many toxins over such a long period. She's got skin issues. Her body's trying to literally push this toxin out of her body, so she's got rashes, she's got problems there. She basically looks 10 years older than she actually is. On top of this, she has lousy sleep patterns, she's got appalling diet, and she has very little in the way of exercise. So as we build this picture, we get a very clear idea where we need to go with it. Now, I'm pretty lucky here at Vancouver Hypnotherapy. I have a team. We have about 6 therapists now working at Vancouver Hypnotherapy, and we use a method called technical hypnotherapy. Technical hypnotherapy requires us to build our responses very accurately. They have to be measurable, they have to be tangible. So there's no metaphysical type of hypnotherapy going on here. So within that, we look for 3 approaches, or we look for 3 steps in the treatment. Number 1 is recognition, number 2, response, and number 3, we adapt so that the client is not going to slip back into the behavior. So with our 50-year-old male, you probably can't read this, but I'll run through here. 50-year-old Eastern European, what we've recognized is a heart condition, there's panic attacks, and there's not really an alcohol history here, so it's a very unusual situation. Excuse me. So what we're seeing there is, it's actually quite unusual for someone of his nature to behave like this and certainly get violent with his wife. So we do a little bit more exploration there, and what we find is the heart condition and the anxiety. He's been to a walk-in clinic and he's managed to get heart medication, very sensible, and anti-anxiety medication, Ativan. Now, he was not aware, possibly through his English language issue, he was not aware that using Ativan and alcohol would cause a massive interaction. And if you have a large use of alcohol combined with Ativan, memory problems, behavior problems, errors in judgment, to say the very least, and who knows, probably a possibility to move towards violence as well. Now, certainly memory issues, behavioral issues, and judgment issues are absolutely noted as an interaction between alcohol and Ativan. Whether the doctor didn't explain that to him or whether he didn't understand that is anybody's guess. However, we picked that up and we're the first people who actually made that connection and immediately treated him to end alcohol use. Using hypnosis, we could immediately stop the alcohol use of any form of alcohol, which in his case was essential because he was going to be probably permanently on the heart meds and likely using Ativan to alleviate anxiety, possibly at various periods for the rest of his life. So absolutely alcohol's got to come out of that picture. There's just no ifs and buts on that. So that's how we involved ourselves with him. Additionally, because we work with alcohol all the time, we work with addiction all the time, we end up writing to his lawyer and being in contact with the police, who actually then take into account the fact that there's a drug interaction when he got violent. So, with luck, this is a situation that is put to bed and brought back into its proper context. Now, as I say, I have a team of therapists here, and they work on these issues all the time. So they see this sort of thing all the time. They're aware, they're on the lookout for this stuff. It's very easy for them to pick up stuff, which sometimes other people are going to miss. So, our 50-year-old male, we end the alcohol use. Our response is to end the alcohol use immediately, and the adapt aspect of this is to say, all right, there is going to be no more use of alcohol. And using hypnotherapy, you can literally put in place a total end use of alcohol. Not the first time we've done it, very effective. Our second client here, a 38-year-old government employee. She's been with this group and she's been getting into a series of what we would describe loosely as bad behavior. Okay? People get into some unusual behavior in midlife, 38-year-old, single, no husband in the picture and no children in the picture. There's a degree of frustration going on here. Anyway, as she has moved towards slightly more alcohol use, some of the activity has turned into a binge activity, and what we also see is there's a history in the background. When she was in her teens, she was bulimic. Now, where bulimia comes into this is very important. When someone's bulimic, there's an absolute lack of moderation. That will come out in various ways as they get older. that lack of moderation often will move towards occasional binge use of alcohol, and in her case actually occasional binge use of cocaine as well. So the behavior gets out of control. Now this isn't to say she's a hardcore alcoholic, far from it. Actually, it's only when anxiety is high and when she starts to slip over this edge. So with her, we go to 0 spirits, in other words, no hard liquor, wine only and moderation. Now when we talk about wine only and moderation, using hypnosis, what we can do is say, okay, you can have a glass of wine and you follow it with a glass of water. If you want another glass of wine, that's fine. Glass of wine, glass of water, equal size. 3 is usually the limit. Glass of wine, glass of water. Now by this stage anyway, the bladder comes in as the moderating device and pretty much takes care of this. This is a very, very simple technique, extremely effective. For people who still need to drink, for instance, in social situations or in situations at work where it's just part of their work, this is a really good option as long as they are not a hardcore constant use alcoholic. In other words, choosing the right solution, it doesn't always mean totally cutting out the substance. So again, using hypnosis, we're able to adapt things a little bit. And in her case, the adapt is no more spirits. In other words, we don't let it get out of control. When you put hard liquor, spirits, into the equation, people just go downhill and lose their judgment so fast, the wheels fly off. So in her case, a moderated approach, perfectly good. And our third client there, 20 years of cocaine use, female, 37 years old, blackjack dealer, working in a casino. Sorry about the coughing. That's a hardcore addiction. That's really harsh. So our response in hypnosis, we're going to motivate her into a physical regime, in other words, getting into a gym. That's one of the first things, because that's going to help as she moves out of her addiction. That's going to help her as she moves out of that addiction. The other thing we're going to do is detox her very rapidly using a series of processes which include sauna. We use a homeopathic detox actually, which we found very, very useful with cocaine addiction, and adjusting the diet a little bit, so that helps as well. So the next stage we get to is, okay, we don't want to slip back into this behavior, so we have to motivate her to start cleaning up aspects of her life. We have to address some of the belief systems which said that cocaine use was okay. We have to also look at her financial situation. In fact, with this particular client, our staff helped her move through a bankruptcy situation. So she ends up, at the end of all this, with her life in an organized fashion, no longer using cocaine. It took about 10 or 12 sessions. She managed to stop by about session 2, but we have quite intensive sessions for something like that, and we then look at all the other things which could contribute to her moving back into that cocaine use. So by looking at the contributing factors that add anxiety and add stress to her life, we can put something in place that will end that cocaine use and end it permanently. We also ended up getting her back in touch with her daughter and with her parents. So a major win on that one. And as I say, this isn't just Rob Hadley. What this is Maria and Svetlana and Carrie, and we have our administrator, Elise, who does a great deal of work on some of these projects as well. So there's a whole organization going on. And those 3 clients there give you a little bit of an idea of the work that we do here. Now those 3 clients aren't quite as fictional as you might imagine. They're actually very much clients that walk through the door, and those are 3 that literally came in over the last month. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the work we do here at Vancouver Hypnotherapy and some of the techniques which we employ. I hope you find this interesting. If you've got any questions, feel free. You can always get hold of me on Skype on vanbc1963 or on my Yahoo email vanbc1963@yahoo.com.